All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name is Greg Bushman, and until very recently, I was a student here at MSU Denver. And while I've since moved on to new things, I look back very fondly at my time here at MSU. And one of the reasons for that is because of my experiences with the Men's Health program and in my many classes with Dr. Risman. One of the things that's so great about those classes is that Dr. Risman creates space for his students to feel safe enough to take risks. And one of the ways we took risks in those classes was by asking ourselves difficult but important questions. One of those questions was, how are young men and boys doing today? Not how are they doing last century, not how are they doing last decade, but how are they doing today and what's going on with them today? In our exploration of this question, sometimes what we would find would confirm our fears about ourselves or about others, and it would take courage to face those uncomfortable truths. Other times what we would find would contradict our past held beliefs about the world. And in those moments, it took courage to set aside our assumptions about what we thought was true and to have an open mind when facing such a rapidly changing world with rapidly changing social dynamics. I think that ultimately my experience with the Men's Health program taught me that no matter how uncertain things are, I can always trust that part of myself that simply wants to reach out and make sure that everyone else is okay, and that everyone includes men and boys. So thank you all for being here. We have Zach Clark here to speak with us, and he'll be speaking shortly. But first, a few words from my former professor, Dr. Risman.
Yeah, I'm going to jump right ahead to the good stuff. This is the Men's Health program. I woke up at 2:30 this morning, thinking, over preparing for this event today, and it's because I didn't want to disappoint the people who really made this happen. Dean Sapolsky was a huge support in making this happen, and I am very grateful for her and for Joe Bailey and for Amy and all the help in the Dean's office. I am also so grateful and didn't want to disappoint Emily Matuszewicz and the Health Institute, where they have been a huge support in making this happen. She and Katie were huge for this. I stopped by and spoke with Dr. Davidson. I had the courage to walk into her office and just introduce myself, and I was just overwhelmed at how supportive she was and is of this mission. And that was, so it's like my heart beating. I don't want to disappoint. At 2:30, I'm awake. I think about my department chair, who is suffering an immeasurable loss of the pearl of his life. And he can't be here, but he has been such an amazing support for me, and I want to do well for him. Tracy Iacobellis, who's been such an incredible support. Corey, all of you guys, I really, really appreciate that. So my heart was racing at 2:30 in the morning, and I got this voice that said, let them hear your heart. I'm like, well, for those of you that know me, I have a prosthetic heart valve. It's pretty loud. You can probably hear it off the microphone here. I'm like, no. Let them hear your heart. Tell them why. Tell them why you're doing this program. Why? Oh, do we have these elements of this Men's Health program? It started, the seeds for the Men's Health program were planted over 50 years ago. I was watching a movie, a 1938 black and white movie. It was only in the 1960s that I was watching it, so I'm not that old. Called Boys Town, with Spencer Tracy and Mickey Rooney. It's about the life of Father Edward Flanagan, the founder of Boys Town, who said, "There are no bad boys. There are no bad boys, only bad environment, bad modeling, and bad teaching." And little did I know that at that time that would become the philosophy, the inspiration for being a physician, for my work. I couldn't work as a physician if I didn't have that belief. I couldn't do this men's health program and work with men the way I do if I didn't have that belief. I understand people have asked me, what about accountability? Yeah, there is a need for accountability as well. It doesn't mean that we don't hold people accountable, but more importantly, the men's health program, I hope, teaches men how to hold themselves accountable. It's not about us telling them, but rather them to say, you know what? Yeah, that's not the truth. I need to tell the truth. So that is an important point about this program. There's, I want to show you, so this program, in addition to helping men to be accountable, also helps them to tell the truth about their lives. And it helps women to understand a little bit more about the truth and to encourage and inspire men to tell the truth, to look at the fictional construct of their life, to look at the ways that they distract themselves in terms of their, an anxiety management system and the ways we manage our anxiety. And certainly I have lots of those and I work on those all the time. You can ask my son who is here and he would agree strongly with that. There's a lot of statistics out there, and I could share with you that all those statistics. You can't pick up a newspaper every week. There's something about the men's crisis, the crisis in boys, etc., and you'll find these statistics. But that's not why I'm here today. There is another reason why I do this program, and that is major university systems. Vanderbilt, Duke, Columbia, they've all developed these men's clinical programs. And in the community, we've got all kinds of really great community organizations circling around men, trying to figure out what do we do to support men. But you know what? They've never taken the men's health class. Those doctors have never taken the men's health class. They've taken a urology class. They know men's urology, but they've never really been invited, as we do in men across cultures, to look at the cultural influences on men's behavior, men's outcomes. They've never had to interview their fathers, as we do, as some of you remember, in the Fathers in Health class. They've never really had to face those things. So I'm proud that the collection of men's health classes developed here represents the most comprehensive assembly of academic content in men's health anywhere. We're the only program that exists. And while I'm proud of that, it's not enough. It's not enough. We need to be reaching out. And the students, I charge them all, the students that come through my classes, I charge them all with the mission of, hey, you're the expert now. You know more than 90-some% of people, the issues facing men and boys. And so it's your job now. It's your job now. I have an ask today. You imagine that might have been coming, huh? I have an ask. And my ask is that we all agree that we could extinguish the word toxic when describing anything about men. Because what toxic does, it's a label. It's cheap and it's lazy. Come take one of my men's health classes. And at the end of the class, if you still decide you want to use that term to describe men, well, then we'll talk. But what we need to do instead is hold a vision. And that's what I ask all of you to do today. Hold a vision of men. And all of us. But today we're talking about men and boys and understanding their gift. They all have something. The problem is we're too distracted. We're too guarded to really see that gift. Imagine the impact on men that we could all have just by having an understanding there are no bad boys. Yes, there's bad behaviors, and it's not lost on me what happened yesterday with a 14-year-old boy. It's hard, and I'm sensitive to that, and I want to be sensitive to that, to any of us that are hurt by that. At the same time, I also know that hating him is not the path to change. It's hard. We can hate his behavior. I am so angry. I am so angry and sad because as a result of this behavior, we lose his gift. We lose his contribution, potentially. And so that's part of the ask as well, is for all of us to see that, yeah, this is really hard stuff. And we don't like those behaviors, but underneath, there's a gift. We're really fortunate today. We're fortunate to have Zach Clark here with us and Matthew Stefanko, who's going to talk about the manual program. But Zach understands. He's done the work. He's had highs and lows, and he knows a little bit about this challenge of telling the truth about what's really going on. So I welcome him, and please help me to welcome him so he can talk a little bit about his journey and why he keeps on going as he does.
Matt will go after me?
Yep.
Cool. Just gotta get a halls here. All right. Roadrunners, what's up? How are we? You know, it's interesting. I do a lot of these talks, and I show up on college campuses. I never know what the room's going to look like. I went down to Ole Miss last year, and they walked me into this old basketball stadium. Next thing I know, there was 1,000 young men filling this stadium, ages 18 to 22. So if you want to be terrified before giving a talk, like picture that moment, because they sniff out your BS like right away. Like they're going to give you their first 3 minutes, and if you don't get them, you're not going to get them. And I think I got through unscathed, but I'm really grateful to be here. Dr. Rissman, I'm especially grateful to you for being. You know, it's funny. I walked on campus today and I saw the sign like I'm just gonna take this. I'm playing at about 50%. Everybody, I got a little halls thing going, but the reason I'm playing at 50% is because I live a big full life, and the last 2 nights my favorite rock band Pearl Jam was in New York City, so I had late nights and an early morning, and I was screaming and I was rocking out to Eddie Vedder, and I'm probably dating myself. I'm 40 years old, but I have an amazing life. So I'm like walking into this on the ropes a little bit, and that's what you're always going to get from me. You know, part of this journey that I'm on with mental health and well-being and all these kind of buzzwords that we're trying to break down the stigma around, it's my responsibility to show up and be pure and be raw with you guys. So when the alarm went off this morning at 4:30 a.m., the first thing I said was, okay, how do I make up an illness? How do I get out of this? How do I not show up? How do I take a screenshot? Like literally these are the thoughts of the flight, and move some things around so it looks like it got delayed or canceled and I just can't be here. That was my first thought. That was my first thought when I woke up this morning, because as I'm sure many of you can relate, like sometimes we just don't want to do life. That doesn't make me weak. That doesn't make me a bad person. That doesn't mean I'm not going to go on and have a really nice day. But sometimes that first thought is really scary. Thankfully, I had the tool to for me, I got up, I looked myself in the mirror, I gave myself some positive affirmations, I splashed some water on my face, I literally threw the phone, because if I go into that thing right away, I will lose myself, and I sat quietly for 5 minutes. That's how I started my day. Those are the tools I used this morning when MSU Denver, as I was sitting in my apartment in New York City, felt so far away, and it felt like the impossible task. And that's my mental health. That's my mental well-being. That's what we're all talking about here today. And as I was going with my thank yous, Dr. Rissman, I so appreciate the way that you are, flying the flag and carrying the sword, if you will. And when I walked onto campus, I saw the thing about, future change makers. And that's the truth of it. Like, for Dr. Rissman, and now for me, I'm 40 years old. Like, the future is in your guys' hands. Like, I'm going to be on my way out. My message is going to be, quieted very soon here. And like, the people that are going to pick this thing up are going to be all of you. And I'm very aware of that. So that banner, that flag that's hanging here on the campus is very true. And I'm grateful for that. And like the thing that I always start, there's two things I want to say. One, yes, men's mental health, men's well-being. Why are men so afraid to be honest about their feelings? I grew up in a house where, like, if I was late for school or I got a detention, it was give me 20 push-ups. It was give me 30 push-ups. It was, go take more repetitions on the mound, or whatever it was that my father thought was the right way to discipline me in those moments. And I'm actually grateful for some of it. I hated him for some of it, but I'm grateful for some of it, right? I'm grateful for some of the structure. I'm grateful for some of the resilience that it taught me. So yes, that's what we were talking about today. But here's the kicker. I look out into this room, and it's probably 50% men and 50% women. The great news for the women in the room is we need you more than the men. Because I'll tell you something, I have this big kind of like social media following. I went on this TV show. I'll tell you guys about that. So if you look at my breakdown on like the Insta, right? I have 90% of my followers are women. 10% of my followers are men. The number one message I get is from who? Women saying what? I want to help my boyfriend. I want to help my husband. He doesn't know how to ask for help. He's too scared. Can I give him your email? Can I give him your phone number? My response every time is yes, absolutely. Here's my phone number. Here's my email. 1 out of 10 will reach out. And some of those guys I'm still connected to. And that's my promise, that's my contract with the world, because I know how hard that is for a guy to do. And so if you're a woman and you're sitting in this room today and you're wondering, like, why am I at a men's well-being talk? Like, what? I'm going to go kick it out in the courtyard. It's a nice day. You can be part of the solution. You're actually a really important part of the solution. And you're welcome here, and you're a part of this conversation. So I want to thank you guys especially for being here. For the men, we'll get to some of that, but just I wanted to acknowledge the women in this room and just let you know that you've kind of earned your seat here, and we need you just as much as we need the men to be here. So who am I? What am I doing here? What's my story? There's a couple things that I want to say. One, This is absolutely not like a say no to drugs talk. This is not I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. If anything, I've learned in my 13 years working in behavioral health care that I need to make the front door to asking for help so wide and so broad and so roomy and so all-inclusive that maybe, just maybe on that morning when you wake up and you don't want to fly to MSU to give a talk because you might feel like a fraud talking to a bunch of people about mental health when your mental health isn't where you want it to be, maybe in that moment you'll step forward and say, I need help. Because that's the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing to do. And so my job is not to tell you that you need a therapist or you that you should stop smoking pot or you need to work out. Like that's not what this is about. My job here today, what I'm gonna try and communicate to you is a little bit of my shared experience in this planet, how I got to this moment, how I earned this microphone, what I went through to get here. And just for you guys just to say yes to being curious. For you guys to be able to say yes to doing what you want to do. For you guys to be able to walk out of this room today and really think about like, hey, that major I just picked, is that really in line with what I want to do? Or did I do that for my mom or my dad or my boyfriend or what the world is telling me? That was a really big lesson that I learned, and it took me a lot of time, so I'm trying to save you some of that. No one ever told me in high school and in college that I could be curious, that I could actually pursue things that maybe my old man didn't want me to pursue, that I could pursue things that maybe my friend group wouldn't think was the cool thing. And so I lived a lot of my life, as a lot of us do in my experience, conforming to a society and to a way of living that was not aligned with my spirit and my soul and my energy and who I really believe I am meant to be. And it took being bottomed out with a needle in my arm and a crack pipe in my mouth and going off to rehab to really find myself. That's what it took for me. And that's okay. I'm grateful for it all today. I say that stuff with pride. Part of the destigmatization that we do in these talks is like, when I tell someone I'm a heroin addict, they're like, ooh, I'm like, what's up with that reaction? Like, heroin's just like weed, like just a news flash. We are in a loneliness epidemic and we are in an opioid epidemic. Epidemics are not good. And if we don't come together and do something about it, we're gonna continue to trend in that direction. Death by suicide numbers, up. Death by overdose numbers, up. We gotta love one another, right? We gotta love one another. And so I'm here to give you some hope. I'm here to give you permission to be curious. I'm here to tell you that, newsflash, everyone in this room has had the morning like I had this morning. I'd be willing to put my bank account on it. I'll walk back to New York City if someone comes up to me after this today and says, every day I've woken up and I just felt great. I popped right out of bed, I did some jumping jacks, and I was ready to take on the world. It's not it. And so I'm gonna try and be succinct here. I know I only have, I just wanna make sure that I'm being a good boy with my respect for the time. It's 2:20 now, what am I looking at for a finish? 20 minutes, oh wow, we gotta launch, rip, roll. Okay, so anyway, Zach Clark, what am I? Who am I? What's going on here? Let me fill you guys in. And I challenge everyone to do this tonight. There was a time in my life where if you asked me who I was, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I know who I am today, right? I'm a 40-year-old male. I live in New York City. I'm an entrepreneur. I own a behavioral health care organization. I started a nonprofit. I believe in service. I believe in philanthropy. I'm a heroin addict. I'm a crackhead. I suffer from anxiety. I suffer from depression. I'm a really good son to my parents. I'm a really good brother. I'm an incredible uncle to my nieces and nephew who have never seen me high, right? I love golf. I love Pearl Jam, which I just told you about. I've run 14 marathons. I love running. It's a huge tool for my mental health. I know who I am today. And that's so important in this journey, in the well-being journey. If I don't know who I am, then it's really hard to develop the most important relationship that I have in my life, which is the one with myself. If I don't know that person that I'm looking at, then how the hell am I going to go out the world and have a relationship with Dr. Rissman? Or have a relationship with anyone else? Worse yet, if I can't look in the mirror, if I'm looking in the mirror and I actually don't know, I'm lying to myself about who I am, then I'm going to walk out into the world and I'm going to be a fraud. And that's even worse than not knowing who I am, because then you set yourself up to be figured out. And when we're figured out, at least for me, that's when the anxiety, that's when the depression, that's when the substances come into play. Because I'm so scared of what the world thinks about me. And that's my existence, right? In 5 minutes, I'll tell you my story. I'm one of 5 kids. I grew up in a house wanting for nothing in South Jersey. 3-sport athlete, football, basketball, baseball. Your classic kind of C+, B-, kick the can down the curb. Student. I was always kind of an anxious kid. I always wanted to fit in. I always wanted to be the cool guy. You know, I wanted to make the joke and make people laugh. I wanted people to see me. I wanted to be people. I wanted to be out in front. So it's no surprise to me that I'm here speaking to all of you. Like, that's something that I wanted. I can say that today. I believe in the power of our actions and our words. And I can be proud of that. I just did it in a much worse way when I was growing up. And so for me, as an anxious kind of whatever kind of kid, the second I had my first drink, which was a Miller High Life at age 13 or 14 at a Christmas party, I'll never forget it, the champagne of beer. I had one, and then I had another one, and I didn't like throw up that night, or I didn't have this like blackout moment. What happened was I went back to my parents' house or wherever. There was a Christmas party. I don't know. They were all hanging out somewhere, and I went back there, and my mom and dad were like, "What were you doing?" I was like, and I lied. And they're like, "Who were you with?" And I lied. And nothing happened. Next morning, I woke up, got my Sega Genesis game, threw it in the controller, played video games. But in my mind, I was like, this is a tool. When I start to feel a little something I don't want to feel, I can grab to a drink and calm. So it was actually, that was my first medicine for my mental health, was the booze. That's what people fail to understand a lot of times. The alcohol is actually a symptom of my mental health. When I'm feeling off, that's when I reach for the substance. And so I went on and I partied. And my high school experience was like, belting out classic rock songs in the woods and taking, bong hits, smoking weed, and, kind of like your Dazed and Confused, if you've seen that movie, and if I'm dating myself, fine, experience. And what happened was it came time to go to college. And this is where, for you all in this room, my dad kind of played me. My dad really wanted me to play college baseball, like really, really, really. I hit puberty late. I was a left-handed pitcher. And, I had a few Division I schools that were looking at me, and I had a few Division III schools that were looking at me. And there was one school my dad really wanted me to go to, which was York College of Pennsylvania, which is where I ended up going. And how he got me to go there is we went and saw the school, and we were driving home in this 1996 GMC Silver Jimmy truck that I loved. He goes, "Son," and he played me. He said, "Son, if you choose to go to York, you can have the car we're driving in." And I said, "Done." I didn't have a voice. I just wanted to make my dad happy. I just wanted to do the things that my father, wanted, because I wanted that validation from another man, from another human being, to tell me that it was going to be okay and that I was on the right path. And I remember making that decision and feeling like that's not what I wanted. That's not what I really wanted to do. And I'm sure there's people in this room that have made those decisions. Like, I just made that decision for someone else. Whether it's in a relationship, I mean, romance, forget about it. You know, like, we want to make other people happy. Relationships are so hard. And the longer I stay on this planet, the more I appreciate long-term relationship, because a lot of them end. A lot of them end because they're hard work. Communicating's hard. And in that moment, I wasn't able to put my hand, I didn't have any understanding of well-being. I didn't understand that I had a voice. I couldn't say to my dad, hey, Dad, I know you really want me to go to this school, and it's really cool that you're offering me this car, but I think I kind of like the other school that we saw. I was too afraid to use my voice. And so then I just committed to this, the next 4 years of my life, going to this school. And by the way, I had like a fine experience. It was fine, but I always knew in my gut, in my soul, the energy was off. And there was no, on the 4th floor, take the elevator up. Zach Clark's going to be in this room talking about mental well-being, mental health. This is a beautiful sight. This room being full tells me that we're making change, we're making progress. When I was in college, it was like, dude, deal with it. Deal with it. I got caught drinking my first week of college. There was no therapist, there was no recommendation to go talk to someone, there was no nothing. It was like, hey, you're kicked off the baseball team for a week and you can start practicing in a week. It was like this authoritative, which I guess like in the world at some point in time you do need, but like that didn't work for me, a 19-year-old kid. Like, great, that's a week to go drink more. You know, like, sweet. And so then I had a pretty like fine college experience, I played baseball for 4 years. I started to be a blackout drinker, you know, sophomore, junior, senior year. Some of the other extracurriculars, the cocaine, the Adderall, the drugs, it kind of all came into play. And I just wasn't living a pure life. I wasn't healthy. I wasn't happy. I wasn't maximizing my human being. I wasn't optimizing human performance because my mind was not right. The most important muscle that I have, that I know today, the first thing that I need to take care of is my mind, because when my mind is right, it transfers down to my heart. And when my heart is right, that allows me to be kind. That allows me to give love. That allows me to walk into a room and say, like, why did that person look at me the way they looked at me? And then have the second thought be like, I don't know what they're going through today, and I hope they're okay. Or get cut off on the road and want to honk on my horn and be like, there might be a woman giving birth in that car. I don't know why they're speeding by me, but I'm not in a rush today, so I can just chill. That's like what mental health looks like for me today, like just being okay. And understanding that I can't control the world. I can control to the end of my fingertips and the end of my toes. And so I had this college experience where no one's talking about mental health, no one's talking about substance abuse, no one's talking about anything. It's all about what grades are you getting, how are you performing on the field, who's your girlfriend, what are you gonna study? And so what did? I did the jock thing. I said, I'm gonna study sport management because I'm gonna work in sports because that's all I know. Another decision I made, there was no curiosity, there was no following anything. I just kept kicking the can down the curb. I was lying to myself, and so in turn lying to the rest of the world. And so I graduate college and I have some tryouts to play baseball, and that doesn't work out. And you know, what happens over the next couple years is a couple things. One, my substance abuse kind of continues to escalate. So this is at 22, 23, 24 years old, because I graduate college. I have this girl who I met my sophomore year that like I'm in love with, but like it's easy, so I think I'm just gonna stay in this relationship and kind of, you know, some of you feel me with that, like I'm just gonna, because it feels safe and good, but it's in here, So then up here, it all is in the same thing. You guys feel me? It's like it's all these decisions. Life decisions suck. Breakups suck. But you know what sucks even more? Staying in a relationship for 20 years when you're not happy. That shit really sucks. And that's why people find themselves doing things that aren't cool. And so what happens for me is I end up getting a brain tumor. And this was kind of like an intervention from God. I'm supposed to go down the Jersey Shore with my friends. It's supposed to be a big party weekend. And I end up in this crazy side of the road X-ray joint, and this lady comes in, and like I don't think she had ever seen an X-ray with like a brain tumor on it. And she's like, you can't move. I'm calling an ambulance. I'm like, hold up, what? Like, I got to go to the shore. I have a 30-pack of Coors Light in my trunk and a bottle of Jägermeister that I used to get in my belly. And she's like, you're not going anywhere. And yeah, we drink Jägermeister. Like, you guys have gotten all cool with your craft beers and whatever. I've been out of the game for a minute, all right? So I go out with my friends. I'm like, why is there 72 different beers? Like, it was Budweiser's and Marlboro Reds. Like, that's what I came up on. Like, but I digress. You guys have fun with it for those of you that still drink. I can't. She's like, you're going to the hospital. So I go to the hospital, and that experience, I had a spiritual experience because I'm sitting in this hospital bed. It's the first time I'm separated from alcohol in a long time. And for 20-something straight days, I get this thing cut out of the back of my head. There's so much love. I mean, it's family, it's friends. I'm a Phillies fan. People are coming to watch the games. They're bringing me Philly soft pretzels and the water ice, and we're like having a good old time. And I'm miserable. And everyone's like, Zach, you're such a hero. You're going to get out of here and you're going to set the world on fire. You just beat this crazy thing. Like, you shouldn't even be here. You shouldn't be alive. And in my soul, I just felt like a fraud. And I couldn't vocalize it. And again, there was no therapist. There was no support. There was no one that came and said, like, how are you doing? Like, we missed that part in elementary and middle school and high school. Like, hey, where's the class? I'm like, saying, how you doing, man? But like really meaning it. And really taking interest in the humans that we get to do this thing called life with. I would have thought that at one of the best hospitals in the country, someone would have came and sat on my bedside and said, like, I get it, but like, what's really going on? How are you really doing? That never happened. And so from there, I just launched out of that hospital bed an animal. And I'm gonna speed up here because I have like 8 minutes, but like, it's wild. I got engaged and got married, so there was that. I developed a pretty significant addiction to opioids because of, I can say like the doctor and but like, it was just another thing that I was grabbing onto to not feel. I can blame, or I can just accept that like, that's what happened because my mental health, my anxiety, and all the things that were going on in my life, I needed to not feel. And I never talked about it. I never put my hand up and said, hey, like, this is really scary. I could have died. Saying that even to this room right now feels really good and safe because that's my truth. And so what I did is I just drove harder and harder and harder into the ground, and I kept making decisions that were not aligned with my spirit and my energy and my heart and my head, and they were aligned with what I thought the world and my dad and my friends and other people wanted me to be. And that's when this thing really starts to go. And that's when the downward spiral really started. And for me, what happens is, you know, I end up with a wife because I keep making these decisions, and she's the best. I mean, she ends up saving my life because she was the first person to keep a boundary with me. But like, I had no business proposing to this. I mean, I could have barely tied my shoes. But it was like I was like gonna keep making these decisions because these decisions were the ones. There was no curiosity. There was no one that sat me down and said, what do you want to do, man? What do you really want to do? So it was like sports and this and you get it. And so I go to rehab one time because I'm off the deep end with the drugs and the alcohol, and my wife says to me while I'm in rehab, if you do this again, I'm leaving. I got out 2 weeks later. I go to the liquor store on a Tuesday morning. Probably feeling the same way I felt when I woke up this morning. Drank the bottle of vodka, went into a neighborhood in South Jersey where I knew I could get drugs, bought drugs, came home, my wife caught me, kicked me out, and that was like the coolest thing she ever did, because she said to me, she goes, Zach, like, I love you, like, you're an amazing person. You really are, and I'm sure you're gonna be okay, but like, I'm out. And she did it in a very loving way. And I give that to the people in this room, because I'm sure there's people here that are struggling with a loved one. And I'm here to tell you, like, take care of yourself and communicate it in a loving way. Don't do this, and say, like, look, for me, I can't. Don't make it about the other person. The more we point the finger at other people, the less it works out. And she did it in a really cool way. And then so over the next 8 months, you know, my mental health deteriorated, everything around me deteriorated, and that feeling of being a fraud just grew bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. To the point where in August of 2011, I was pretty convinced I was either gonna die, and I'm not being dramatic, but die from an overdose or some type of behavior that I shouldn't have been participating in, get hit by a car, I don't know, or I was gonna get sober. It was either or. I'd been arrested, I'd been thrown in institutions. You know, at this point I was intravenously using heroin, I was drinking around the clock, and I had no hope. And this is the part of the story that's so beautiful, and I love when I get to this part of the story, because when we think about the work Dr. Rissman's doing, we think about those signs about being change makers, when we think about humans together, the beautiful news is, like, you don't need to go to school for 7 years and get a mental health and counseling degree to be nice. You don't need to go get a doctorate or be a psychologist to be a kind person. Because at the end of the day, in my story, it was not a therapist, it was not one of my friends, it wasn't a family member, it wasn't a psychiatrist or a psychologist that saved my life. It was a bank teller. A bank teller saved my life. I walked into a bank, a PNC bank in South Jersey. I had a check made out to myself. I was 250 pounds. I mean, I was a mess. I was a mess. And for the first time in my life, someone looked at me and said, something's not right here. And Rhonda Jackson, who I'm still in touch with today and is my angel, she took this check from me as I handed it to her, and she probably knew, and she went to the back room, and I get choked up every time I tell the story, and she could have called the police. She could have told her manager and probably had me kicked out and arrested. She could have done a million other things that would have just made probably her life a lot easier. But she called my dad. She called my dad. And no one had heard from me in 3 or 4 days. My dad answered the phone, and Rhonda said, you need to come down here and get your son. And that one phone call changed the course of my life forever. One conversation, one I see you, one fist pump to my guy as I see him up here introducing everyone, doing such a great job. You're a good public speaker, man. Can change the trajectory of anyone's life. And that's what Rhonda Jackson did for me. And then 2 days later, I'm in rehab. I go to rehab for 5.5 months. And for the first time in my life, at 27 years old, as I'm watching all my friends go out and become attorneys and doctors and bankers and have families and get married, I'm sitting in rehab, and guess what? I'm happy. I'm freaking happy. Because I'm telling the truth. I'm sitting in these groups and I'm saying, I didn't want to play baseball. I didn't want to do that. And all of a sudden, I feel this sense of pride and purpose, and I look in the mirror and I'm like, holy moly, dude, like, you got a shot. You got a shot to really build a life that you're proud of. And that was the beginning of this journey over the past 13 years. So that was all, and this time of year is really special for me because I went into treatment on August 30th of 2011, which means I just celebrated 13 years of continuous sobriety, which is like the most important thing. Thank you. I'll clap for that. I'll clap for that. I'll clap to that. Someone else had 6.5 here. I met a young lady who got sober out here. Like, there's people in this room that are sober, and that's a huge part of my story. And it's always like, you know, there's the substance abuse piece and the mental health piece, and I work really hard at both. You know, and so what happened was I got sober, and here's the truth. The first decision I made, the first honest decision I made 27 years into my life, the first decision I made where I'm gonna take care of my heart and my head, not my dad, not my mom, not my brother, not my friends, I'm gonna do this for me, is the counselor said, where do you wanna go? You wanna go back to Philly? You wanna go to DC with your brother? You wanna go out to Minnesota? There's some recovery homes out there. I said, no, I wanna go to New York. So you wanna go to New York? Why do you wanna go to New York? I said, I don't know. I hate their sports teams. I hear it's expensive. I think it smells. But something in my soul is telling me that I need to go to New York. And my counselor looked at me and said, okay, maybe you should take a visit to New York. And I went to New York. And when I visited New York that weekend, 3.5 months into my rehab stay, it was a supervised visit. We went to an AA meeting, and I walked into this AA meeting, you know, which is a 12-step recovery group, which is about community and peer-to-peer support. And I was like, damn, there's some young people here. There's some cool people here. There's some people in the city getting sober. And that thing lit me on fire because these hands went up, and I was like, he's got my story, she's got my story. And there was like this melting pot of beauty and energy, and for the first time in my life, I was like, I'm home. I found my people. I never found it in a locker room. I never found it in a classroom. And that's still a big part of my story today, that community and the running community. And for me, it's about community. Because the behavioral health care professionals in this world are kind of like run ragged, right? There's a lot of the demand is far exceeding the supply, so it's up to all of us to love one another, and that's why I think it's so cool. You're going to hear from Matt, from Manual about what they're doing and how we're trying to infiltrate onto college campuses. And I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get it all in here. So. What I can tell you about the last 13 years, guys, what I can tell you about the beauty of taking care of my mind is that I've been able to help others. I mentioned briefly that I went on television, so like check this out. It's COVID, it's the middle of 2020. I'm running a really successful business in New York City, which is a story for another day, but like follow your dreams, follow your guts, bet on yourself, like all that stuff is real. I did it. I'm really proud of it. We're still doing it. And I walk into my apartment on a Friday afternoon, and LA is calling. I'm like, LA, who's calling from LA? And I'm like, all right, I pick up the phone, and it's a producer from this show, The Bachelorette. I'm like, please lose my number. Like, why are you calling me? I'm 36 years old. And she said something in that moment. She's like, but your sister. And I was like, my sister what? And, you know, she's like, your sister put in this application. It's so beautiful, and we think this, and we think that. And I'm like, all right, tell me more. And like, you know what I was taught in sobriety? You know what I was taught in my mental health journey? Is just take the next right step. Take the next right step. I'm not God. Like, you know, like take the next right step. And that's what I did. And it was the middle of COVID, and the world was shut down. And so like I was able to tell myself like, hey man, like why don't you just give this thing a shot? No one else is having any fun. Like literally the world is shut down. like if there's a time you're gonna do this, like it's now. And I did that. And you know what? Like, the love and the romance and the relationship and all that stuff aside, like, I can tell you what I had that everyone else there didn't. Not everyone, but most of the other people there didn't. Is that when I showed up on that thing, in that desert, to be on this show, I was a pretty, like, evolved human because of my experience and the work that I had done. And I was really confident in who I was, and I loved myself. So whether the camera was on me or not, I was gonna be Zach. That's just who I was gonna be. And when I got off the show, I talked to some of my other friends, like, dude, that edit I got, or like, I didn't say that. Like, dude, you did say that. Like, you were just trying to do something there to get some more or whatever. And what my friend said to me, what my family said to me, like, that dude I saw on that television screen, like, that's the dude we know. And that was the biggest compliment I could get, because that tells me that I'm living true to like myself. And the other thing that happened there is there was a night where I was sitting down and I told my story just like I'm telling my story to you guys right now. And they kept drilling into me like, aren't you nervous to tell your story? Like the producers and the people and the da-da-da. I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like, this is who I am. If someone doesn't like who I am and this story that I tell about myself, they have that choice. But I'm done making up who I am for other people. That shit is gone. And what happens? I tell my story, and when that episode airs, I flip open my phone, and the thing is literally like, you know, it's the blessing and the curse of having people and these eyes on you. You know, I walked in this coffee shop this morning, and it was like a fan was like, ah, ah, ah. Those people are nuts. But anyway, this in the best way, like the best. I mean that, Bachelor Nation. It's like, you know, it's a whole thing. But the phone was hot, literally shaking. And I flip it open, and every message was my mom, my brother, my sister. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you this. Mental health. And over the last 4 years, like I've never wavered from this message. The message that I gave you guys today, the message that I hope to continue to deliver to others as I stay on this journey, which is like there's hope. It's okay to ask for help. You know, like, there was a time in my life like where I thought yelling and screaming and this was gonna get me. And in the short term, sometimes it does. Being authoritative, being, you know, this person. But in the long run, like, it sounds so cheesy and so simple, but like kindness really is the easier way. Love really is the easier way. It just truly is. And so practice that. You know, and like what I can say is that we're going to hear from Matthew, from Manuel, and, you know, I never have enough time to fit in everything that I want to say. But like the moral of my story today is like each person in this room, like be curious about one thing in your life. You have permission to be curious. Find something, write an inventory, something you want to change, and then start taking baby steps toward changing that. You know, like you are worth it, and I'm sure and I'm certain that if you do that, you'll be surprised where you are 6, 12, 18 months, you know, from now. The second thing I want to say is like, if you feel good, don't manufacture drama. Like if your mentals are good and your heart is good and you feel like you're on the right path, go with that. I think part of our world today, the flip side of this is we're talking about this stuff a lot, and we're going a little bit the other way of like everyone's trying to figure out like, do I have mental health problems? Am I like if you feel good. Own that shit. That's good. Good for you. Like I feel good most days, and I lean into that, right? And the third piece is like, it's the hardest thing to do, but like, know who you can call and ask for help, or know who you can call and say like the stuff I call my friends with now, it's like, yo, Matt, this is gonna sound really crazy. This is gonna sound so insane. You know, like, and then it's just like the dumbest thing. Like she sent me this text message and it like, she didn't put a period at the end of it. I don't know what she's trying to say. And he's like, dude, I've been there. Because we all have. Like, I deal with a lot of serious shit in my life. Like, work in behavioral health care, there's overdoses and suicides and all this stuff. But the thing that's going to rock me is like, what does this mean? What are they saying about me? You know, it's like, we're all humans. We're all in this together. But being able to have the humility and make that call to my friend and having him say, like, dude, I've totally been there. Like, it's all good. I'm like, all right, so I'm not crazy. He's like, yeah, dude, you're good. Like, go get a slice of pizza. I'm like, all right, later, dude. And, like, you move on with your day. It's like, it works. We just think that our stuff doesn't matter. Or we convince ourselves that, like, you know, we don't need it. So, look, mental health's important. The mind is important. I hope that something I said today resonated with you. I'm going to hang out for a while. I don't think I have anything till, like, 5:30, so I know Matthew's gonna come up, but like the moral of the story, guys, is like, I love you, I do, like, you're worth it, and like this life that I've built is available, I believe, to anyone who wants it. I actually believe that because I was from the cardboard box to right here, like it happened for me, I lived it, I can tell you that, you know, and it's all in this sphere of like, this world wants us to be something that a lot of us don't want to be, and it's okay to go out and find that person, find who you are, and grab a hold of that. And that's what helps me to keep showing up. And like today, the truth is, like, once I got past the fear and anxiety and the 4:30 in the morning scaries, like, I knew I was going to connect with human beings today. And that's like, I know that I'm going to have a good day if I have the opportunity to connect with some people who care about mental health, who care about behavioral health care. And so I just want to thank you for bringing me out, and go Roadrunners.
Okay, do we have the slides? Let's see where we are. Yeah, I'm working on it. Let's see. Okay, awesome. Well, this is a classic case of them saving the worst for last. So I am going to be really quick because I want you all to be able to talk to Steve, talk to Zach. I'm just going to really do two things quickly. The first is I just want to kind of talk about how unique it is that you have a program like the Men's Health program that Steve's building. When I was starting Manual, and a lot of the inspiration behind it is all the stuff that Steve talked about, Zach started talking about, et cetera. I started Googling, like, Men's Health, Men's University, et cetera. Steve was one of the only names that popped up when you do that, right? And so I sent him an email out of the blue, and I was lucky enough to get that response. And then we really made something awesome happen at MSU Denver over the last 18 months with a lot of exciting plans moving forward. So if, I know a lot of you are connected to Steve in different ways, but if you aren't, or if you want to find ways to dive further into the program, you really are lucky to have this. I mean, we work with upwards of 60 schools now. We're going to have 100,000 men on the program, on the platform by the end of the year. We started just in the end of 2022, so we've been growing super quickly. And what that's allowed me to do is be really exposed to what a lot of schools are doing. And what I can say is that what Steve's doing, Jermaine, I saw, what some of the programs that they're running here are truly unique to the institution. You should feel really lucky that you can learn from him and be a part of it. So the other big part of this is talking about what Manual is as a solution and just making sure you all are aware of what is available. When we were thinking early on, and when I saw all the data that Steve was alluding to in previous jobs of mine and behavioral health, et cetera, I wanted to actually give young men on college campuses and high schools, et cetera, like a real solution that they could, not just talking about where the struggles were, but giving them something that would resonate with them, and hopefully give them that kind of connection that, when you heard Zach's story, or if you had the time to hear my story, you'd hear we didn't have in that college environment. And so we wanted to give that to them. So the Manual program is available to all students at MSU Denver for free, and that's been led, that charge has been led by Steve and others. There's a few different elements of the program that you can tap into. One of the things that I think is really great about the program is we really try to meet men wherever they are, right? So we've got guys who very openly will tell us, like, I hate the coaching, but I love the content, or I think the content sucks, but I really appreciate your weekly newsletters. And we don't try to judge, like, where they're meeting us. We're just happy that they're getting something from us, and it really is about finding different ways for them to get excited about what we're doing. So there's really 4 main elements of the platform. We have our video content, text-based coaching with other young men, our expert-hosted live streams that we do on a monthly basis, and then also integrating with and trying to connect guys to campus resources. One of the things that's really crucial to understand about Manual is, like, we don't really want necessarily to be the solution ourselves. We really think of ourselves as like connective tissue. That's how we describe it, of like, we want to meet men wherever they are, often in a place where they're saying, I'm not ready for help, I don't need help, I don't trust the help that's there, and then bring them to a place where they can be excited about getting whatever support they need, hopefully from a lot of the really amazing resources that are already on campus or that are a part of their community. So the content, if you're familiar with platforms like Calm or Masterclass or some of these other kind of content-driven platforms, we really took that as inspiration. We wanted the content to be exciting, compelling. We wanted any guy who was out there to be able to engage with it. So we don't just talk about things like mental well-being. We're also talking about sleep, personal finance, nutrition. I had $135,000 of debt coming out of college. You think that affected my stress, my anxiety? Yeah, it really did, right? But at the time, I wasn't kind of making that connection, right? And so it's really important for us to do that. And one of the exciting things is people like Zach, people, other men who have really, really compelling stories are on the platform, trying to resonate and connect with guys' experiences. And so we found that when talking with a lot of young men, things like Calm, Masterclass, et cetera, weren't really resonating with them. It felt like it wasn't connecting with their experiences, and we wanted to build content that would do that. The second piece, and this is the piece I get most excited about, is our one-on-one kind of male coaching, male interaction that we have on the platform. The loneliness epidemic, the disconnection that a lot of young guys are feeling, and a lot of young people are feeling in general, is extremely real. And unfortunately, when you talk with a lot of young men, they'll say they don't have good friends. And even if they do have those good friends, the idea of talking with that good friend about, mental health or suicidal ideation or erectile dysfunction or any other highly stigmatized issue that a lot of young men go through, they're not picking up that phone, they're not having that conversation. And so for us, what we wanted to build was that kind of connection with other young men. So it's non-clinical, it's not meant to be therapy, it's meant to give guys an outlet to talk with another young guy who's been through it whenever they need to, right? So these are young guys on our team, full-time staff, fully trained, but they're in their early to mid 20s. They're, and into late 20s. They're, a couple years past the experiences that a lot of the young guys are dealing with. They've graduated from college. They've gone through what a lot of the young men we work with are dealing with, and they can really resonate at that level. We have some really amazing live streams. We were lucky to have Steve do one last year, but we do this on a monthly basis. The idea is to create some community, bring some guys together around various different topics, and really answer questions where you can get in front of people like Zach, get in front of people like Steve, and really dig into whatever questions you might have. And then finally, this is the kind of the campus resources that I was alluding to. Every institution we work with, we customize a number of parts of the platform, but one of the big ones that we do is the campus resource section, right? So you're gonna be able to see all the different things that are available to you here. And hopefully the idea is that we've created a space on the app where guys feel comfortable right away, low barrier to entry, and then if and when they need that greater level of help, it's right there and they can access it. Very easy to onboard. I don't even think it takes 3 minutes. It probably takes like 60 to 90 seconds unless you really take your time. And it's available now in a really exciting way. In a lot of different capacities, right? So we started out as a web-based platform. It's still available at app.manual.care if that's the easiest thing for you. If you don't want to go and download an app, I know a lot of guys are like, yeah, I don't need another thing on my phone. But we now also, in addition to that, for the first time, we do have that mobile app experience both on Android and on iOS, and so it can go, you can go, search it, download Manual, and use it whenever you see fit. This is the information, the summary. We'll leave this up, so you're more than welcome to kind of go, download this. With Steve and in partnering with a lot of other campus partners at MSU Denver, we have a little over 8,000 guys on the platform here, which is super exciting. That includes online students, et cetera. So there's been a lot of amazing push and utilization by guys here, and I always say that because I think sometimes when we have these conversations, because men are not talking with each other about what they're dealing with, they think I'm going to be the only guy that goes and downloads this app. And the reality is you're going to be joining a community of almost 100,000 guys by the end of this year, right? So there's a lot of utilization and a lot of excitement around it, even if, the guys aren't, I always joke that, like, I don't know if there's ever going to be a situation where a guy goes back to his fraternity house or his dorm and he's like, man, you got to download the Manual app. Maybe, like, we can certainly dream and hope for that, right? But if we know that they're going in and they're using it and getting good experiences, that's enough for us. So anyway, we hope that this can be one part of the solution, in addition to all the work that Steve and many other campus partners are working on. So, working with MSU Denver, I think you all were like our third or fourth partner. Now we're going to be working with 60 schools. So it's been a real treat for us, and we hope this is just the beginning. So thank you to everybody for having us. I'll also be around. I imagine Zach will have a slightly longer line than I will, but I'm happy to chat with anybody else that would love to know more about the platform or what we're building. So thank you to Steve, thanks to Zach, and thanks to everyone for taking a few minutes out of your time. Steve, is there anything else, or we're all wrapped up? Cool. Thanks so much.